My kid's father passed away. I like the tiny detail part. What to do, what to do. Okay, where is the color change? Where is the shadow with a lighter color? What the heck? Seriously. But you know, I'm also a Christian, and that's another thing that is really important to me is my faith. All of a sudden it looked like this thing just grew a beard overnight. Well, welcome back. It's been a hot minute since I've actually recorded anything or even worked on this cow, which we're gonna do today. And this is going to be more of like a studio chat. So it's not a live stream, obviously, because you would have noticed that it's been streamed, but it is me talking while I'm working. And I want to show you my palette for today. Top is Mars Black, then Payne's Gray. My tube's almost empty. It exploded a little bit. Deep Violet. And then there's the red. Hold on. It is Cadmium Red, Deep Hue, and then Titanium White at the bottom. And today I'm going to work on more details on this nose. And I'm going to chat while I do it. I'm going to give you some paint tips. I'm going to talk about life. I'm going to talk a little bit about the future of the channel and how videos may or may not change. Guys, I had to dust down my art station a little bit. It's been a bit of a mess. It's been dusty. It's been gathering dust. The last time that I've worked on this cow was in April. Right now it's September 22nd. A lot has happened. So, in case you are new here, welcome. My name is Mimi. Oh my word, look at this. There's like so much dust on my jeepers, on my, here, you see that on my fingers? Holy moly, there's like dust everywhere. That's how long it's been. But anyway, hi, my name is Mimi, and I paint mostly animals because I really enjoy painting animals. I might veer into other topics, subjects in the future, but for now animals it is, and I need to work on this nose. And if you haven't followed me up until this point, I will pop up the reference photo for you so you can see what I'm working with. I also have it right beside me on my computer. Like if you can see my hand here, my laptop is on that side. That's where my reference photo is. That's what I'm using to guide me for this cute little cow. Well, probably not little. Cows are not very little. Alright, so now I need to figure out what brush I'm going to start with, and I'm going to work on the tiny little grooves and between the spots, and you know, just when I look at that photo I'm like, oh yeah, okay, gotta get in there. I am gonna go straight in. Oh, maybe you can't see it. Oh, my hand has got the wrong color, but straight in with my tiny little nail brush. This is a nail brush. Ordered it on Amazon. Awesome. Great for little details. I do not have my other camera set up so you can see my mixing process. Guys, it's been a hot minute, and I will talk about that in a little bit, about what's been going on and why it's been taking me so long to get back to this. So, because life, man, throws you lemons sometimes that you don't always know what to do with, and you gotta sort it out. And in the meantime, there was not a whole lot of art going on. So, right now I have mixed Payne's Gray, Deep Violet, and some Titanium White. I'm just looking at the color. You can see it on my brush here. It's kind of a purpley color. Now, quick tip, if you're completely new to acrylic painting, acrylics dry darker than when you mix them on your palette. Keep that in mind. So I know that this color is gonna get darker. So what I'm just gonna do is I'm just gonna follow my reference photo. I see a couple of lines that are there that are just kind of running around like on the nose, and I'm barely touching the canvas at this point, guys, barely. It's like literally just grazing the surface, and I add a little bit extra water or sometimes extra medium to make my paint flow a little bit better, because sometimes paint wants to be thick. We don't want thick. Now, I'm not completely following my reference photo. I'm just kind of wiggling my brush around, see where it wants to go and see what it wants to do, and I'm just looking a little further up here. I'm gonna get a few lines in just as a guideline and use those kind of as an anchor moving forward. But you know what's kind of nice, even though I haven't painted in a while, to pick it up at like a very detailed stage is kind of like a gift, because the beginning part of the painting I find difficult sometimes, or boring, let's put it that way. It's kind of more boring than difficult. And you know, like the putting on the grid and putting in the sketch and things like that, it all is not something that I'm really enjoying half the time. I like the tiny detail part. I really live for that. I really enjoy that. So to actually get back into a painting at that stage of the painting, oh, I'm kind of stoked here. If you follow me along then and you watch most of my videos, please watch my videos. You might be aware that our family went through a bit of a shock. Although it wasn't a complete and total shock, we knew something like this was going to happen sooner or later. I've got to be very gentle here, by the way, because this, I'll just use my finger to dab, is very light in my reference photo, so I don't want these lines to be too distinct. So if you're painting with acrylics, do not be scared to put your finger on the canvas. It won't hurt you. My kid's father passed away in May. And I do talk a little bit about that in one of my videos. I talk a little bit about complicated grief because our journey as far as a married couple is an interesting one. Oh, there we go. And not all of that I can share as of right now, but if you are a little bit more interested in the story about how I found out that he was on his deathbed and that he died, and the things that happened after and the emotions involved with it, you can go and find that video. I will pop up a thumbnail so you kind of know what to look for when you're trying to find it. But that was kind of one of the, last times I had actually kind of worked on this cow. Let me just see. I gotta move a few lines down here. Some of these are continuing lines, but they kind of get broken up a little bit by the spots. So that's kind of, where things kind of came a bit to a halt, dealing with the aftermath of that. And oh, that is way too much. Boop. There we go. Then it wasn't too much longer after that summer break started. And one thing I can tell you is, as a single parent, summer break is not necessarily the best time of year. I can tell you that much. It definitely is not. Because school is a bit of a, reprieve for someone that, doesn't really have an extra person there at all times to look after kids, do the things and all that fun stuff. So now you have them home 24/7, and what are you going to do with each other all day long, kind of thing. And it's not always easy. So I kind of dread summer break half the time. It's not my favorite time of year, I can tell you that. So that was not, a good time to continue on, a lot of video production or painting. Although painting would have been good, it would have helped me. I'm pretty sure it would have, as far as an emotional outlet, so to say. But, it is what it is. Life is what it is, right? Sometimes things happen, sometimes they don't. And what didn't happen was a continuation of painting. So it just took a little bit of a back burner approach. Okay, so what I'm doing is actually I'm trying to get some lines connecting each other a little bit. Like if I look at my photo, there are some parts that look almost like somewhat circular parts on the nose, and I don't even know if the camera is picking it up because it's so tiny, and I'm also not using a very contrasting color, but that is kind of on purpose because it is not very obvious on here that there are kind of, these like circular things on the snout here. So I might not even make full circles. I might just make indications of them. They're not necessarily circles, but anyway. Ramble. So what do you guys do for summer break, and how do you keep busy, and especially on a budget, like if you don't really have a lot of financial means to go places or put kids in camps or whatever, you're kind of stuck. So what do you guys do? And I'm speaking to people with kids. We have gone to the beach a few times, and no, actually only one time. I'm lying. We went to the beach only once, because guess what? Who does most of the work when we go to the beach? Yeah, that would be me. And sometimes I'm just like, nope, not today. I don't feel like putting in an effort. Not necessary if they are not going to put in an effort. So I'm just kind of looking at this, and there's not a whole lot that I feel that I need to be doing with this kind of structure here on the nose. There. And like I said, I'm not totally following my reference photo here. I'm doing a little bit of freestyle, using it as a guide, the photo, rather than it has to be, you know, completely and totally a copy. Like, that's not necessary. But I do like this color for another section that needs a little bit of attention. So I'm gonna switch brushes here. I've got like hair floating around. I tried to clean my little art corner here in my room as much as I can, but yeah, missed a few things. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll grab that angle brush that I first grabbed earlier, this guy, and there are some indications of like indentations in these two parts of the cow's nose mouth. So I'm going to put that in with this color, and I will probably go over it later with a bit of a darker color just to bring the shadows out more. I just want to map it in a little bit. You don't always have to go for perfect. Sometimes it's better to just kind of map it out, and I'm just trying to see where, yeah, they're just like little indentations, and then it goes into a bit of a bigger blob. Like, I'm just looking at colors more than anything when I do this. I'm like, okay, where is the color change? Where is the shadow? And where do I want this on my subject? Looks like it's got freckles. You know, there's always a bit of a stage that is kind of ugly before it gets better. And that's completely fine, because that's how you learn. And sometimes, you know, it can be a rough place to be in. I must be honest here. It's not always. I'm just trying to see, have I got this in the right place? Yeah. My subject has slightly different proportions than the one that I'm looking at. There, just need a little bit more ground covering here. Just dabbing it on, really. Just cleaning my brush. I'm kind of, right now I'm thinking about what I'm going to do next. What am I going to work on next? What needs some attention here? And I know that it needs a little bit more brightness, but I don't want to do that, the white part of my painting quite yet. I don't feel it's quite ready for that. I still feel I might need to add a couple more shadows in this area. I might want to go over my lines here with a glaze just to set them apart a little bit more. Yeah, I think I'm going to do that. So I'm going to go grab Payne's Gray. And again, my apologies that you can't really see my color mixing, but honestly, I just need to ease myself back into doing this because it's been a while and I don't want to overwhelm my brain. Okay, we're getting a nice kind of deeper purplish color, almost like eggplant color. I like that. See, you can see it on my brush maybe. Brush is also a bit dark, but there it is. However, I'm going to dilute it. I'm going to go back into my water and make it a glaze because I don't want to completely cover my lines that I just put on there. I like the lines here. They're cute. They're subtle. They just need a little pop of a shadow. I think they need to be a little bit deeper and darker. So we're going to give this a try and we'll see how it goes. And if it is not good enough, I can always erase it again. That's it's quite wet. Might be too wet. Okay, let me just dab it. It's almost like watercolor. Yeah, that's not quite doing what I expected it to do. Let's try again. Maybe just dabbing it along the edges might just be enough to bring it out a little. I think I like that better. Yeah, not going over, but just kind of just right beside it and under it, just to bring out the actual line. See how that actually starts to pop a little bit? I could have used that teeny weeny light, but this brush holds a little bit more like water. The little tiny detail brush is not going to hold as much water, so. And then I'd be constantly dipping into the paint and getting a little tired of doing the same thing over and over again. So I'm just using the edge of my brush, like it's an angle brush, and I'm just like very gently tapping alongside the line that I just made and creating a little bit of a shadow. But I just don't want it to be too overwhelming because this is really, it's so minuscule if you look at it. And sometimes you don't want to overthink your details. Sure, details are great in paintings, especially if you're trying to go for realism, right? But too many, and it becomes overwhelming and it makes no sense anymore. And you're looking at it and you're like, I don't know what my eyes are seeing. And that is just not worth it. You want to look at something and enjoy it. You don't want to look at something and be confused. There. Yeah, I want to be careful. Okay, I'm starting to sort of like what I'm doing. It's trial and error at times, guys. You know, sometimes you don't know until you try. And then you're like, oh, that's awesome. Or like, oh my gosh, what the heck did I just do? Well, like I said, it's a good thing that these are acrylics. They're super forgiving. It's easy to fix your mistakes. Why do I not paint with oils? That's a very good question, by the way. Not that someone's asking me this, but I can imagine people asking me, why don't you use oils? Because I have kids and cats. And I don't have my own studio space that I can close a door completely, you know, knowing for sure no other creature is going to go in there. I have my art stuff set up in my bedroom. And even right now, there is a kitty cat on my daughter's bed. I share my room with my 9-year-old daughter, you know, grooming itself. And I'm just like, I don't trust little kit fingers or kitty cats to not touch my work if it needs to dry, because oils are slow in drying. It's a slow drying medium. Yes, I know there are mediums that you can add to it to make it dry faster, but I just don't want to risk that. Plus, I'm also very impatient myself. And when I start a project, I would like to just be able to move on and not wait for hours, days, weeks before it's dry. And that's the beauty of acrylics. It dries super fast. And it kind of goes with my personality. I tend to be a little bit fast-paced in certain things and in certain areas of my life and how I handle things. And yeah, it kind of reflects in my painting and in my chosen medium. And I would love to eventually venture into oil paints when I have a lot more patience to do that, because right now I just don't. All right, so bit by bit, I see that those are starting to kind of take shape here. There we go. I had this painting turned around for a long time as well, because I knew I wasn't going to be working on it, and I have the tendency to overthink when my current project is constantly within view, staring at me, looking at me, begging me to finish it, and that just drives me bonkers, and it's not helping me at all. You know, fresh eyes on a project are very helpful. Sometimes you look at something way too long and you can't see the forest over the trees and you just don't know what to do anymore, and then leaving it for a while and turning it around and not looking at it can actually be very beneficial. I have another painting that's still not finished that I have on my list now to finish. I'm like, okay, this painting now needs attention, and it is my eagle painting that just needs more details in some of the feather parts of it. But I also turned that one around and just did not look at it anymore because it was driving me up the wall. So, you know, maybe for future, if you struggle with your projects, you know, it's like analysis paralysis for me. And it's funny because it's different for every person, because I have a friend that likes to keep her work out there. So whenever she walks into that room, whenever she sees that painting and that part, her brain is like, oh yeah, I need to add this or I need to do that. And that it works in her favor. It's because her brain is just wired slightly differently than mine. And that's okay. We all work differently. We all are wired differently. And that's the beauty of it, you know. Nothing wrong with that. Okay, I'm just kind of looking at this now from a bit of a distance, and I think for these tiny little pieces, I'm gonna leave this for now. Okay, so we've kind of worked on these tiny little details on the nose for now. I want to leave that and not look at it for a little bit, but I do know that these wider, like lighter hairs in this area here and there, it needs a little bit more definition. And I'm also looking at my reference photo, and I'm actually seeing there might need some more, it might need some more shadow too. So I might just go in with a rake brush, this one, or fork brush. It's really cool. It's got 4 different prongs there, and it's very easy to quickly lay down some paint. But I'm thinking I need some shadows back in here, in this area here and there, and before I put on the highlights. So we're gonna do that. And I think I'm actually gonna go back into this, the eggplant color that I made earlier, as you can see. And I'm just gonna be bold here, and I'm gonna make like strokes like that, and it might be really dark, but it's okay because I'm gonna go over it with highlights. There's not a lot of paint in my brush. Okay, I don't want it to look too uniform here. See where that hair is going because it's shifting direction. Okay, I need a little bit more paint. I don't want too much water because then it becomes a glaze, and I don't want that. So I'm gonna mix a little bit more paint here, and added a little bit of medium just so that it flows a little better off of my brush. Sometimes water works, but you will dilute your color that way, and if you really like your color that you're working with at that point, like, you don't want to dilute it too much. Okay. Still not entirely happy with how dry that is. So I'm adding a little bit more water now. I mean, you can see the difference. Like here it had a little bit more water in it, and here it didn't. Automatically becomes a lot darker, right? So that's another, maybe a tip, you know, that you could just use is like, okay. And I'm gonna go along the edge here, just looking at the, direction of the fur. Yeah, that part is a little bit darker, but that is okay because it is supposed to be a bit darker at that end. So I'm gonna go back down here and do a little bit more. Okay, that's a lot more. That's okay. I can go over that with highlights. There we go. There, that's much better. And now I'm gonna go to the other side and do the same thing. Now let's see if I can do this from this angle. I am right-handed, and sometimes going to the opposite side can cause some issues for my hand. There we go. So how do you fix that? You can just give it a shot like I am right now, and I'm like, okay, that is fine. It doesn't have to be precise at this point. It's just bringing back some shadows. But if you really want to get, you know, in the nitty-gritty details, turn your canvas around. So that your wrist can bend in a natural way. Versus, yeah, I'm gonna do it right now because it's easier for me to flick it this way than to go all the way over here and then try to move it down. It's such an unnatural movement of the wrist. It's just not gonna work. Now, you could, to help you out, turn your reference photo upside down as well, because it might help you. But if you feel like you can translate your reference photo, you know, and what you use as a guide onto your canvas without turning it around, go for it. Because it's just an extra step, right? And I'm always like, yeah, no, it's fine. Okay, I'm gonna take a peek. I'm turning it back around. Okay, yeah, there are some darker parts here. There we go. Okay, so it's got a little bit more definition with some shadows, and now I might want to go back over top of that with a lighter color. So I'm going to clean my brush and go back in. I'm just looking at the bottom here. Well, I think the chin is pretty good for my final highlights, and I'm not sure, I don't think it's in the, it might be in the frame. This part here, it's gonna need brighter highlights, like, you know, just plain titanium white, but I'm not at that stage yet. And there's another tip, just don't use plain titanium white until you're kind of at the final stages of your painting. At least that is my experience. It works way better that way. There we go. Now, do I just, now I'm just, here is my inner dialogue right now. Which one am I going to use? Am I going to use this little rake brush and just put in some highlights in between? Or am I going to go itty bitty but more controlled and able to put every single stroke in a little bit more refined? What to do? Decisions. The things you go through as an artist. You know what? I am gonna go in with my little tiny brush right now. So I'm gonna make it wet, and I am going to make a new color mixture. Sometimes I use the already existing mixture that I've used, because then it stays all in the same family and it's a little bit easier, like on the eyes. Sometimes I make a complete new one. I'm just thinking, what should we do? Is it going to be a pinkish or purple, or maybe even red? Here's another tip that, you know, will be good for you to keep in your arsenal. Because, okay, so you can see that there's pink on there, right? But this is not the right color because this is very similar to what's already there. It still needs to be lighter. However, use a bigger brush for blend or for mixing. Here's the tip. Grab a bigger brush. You see how many more bristles are on that? You are able to mix a lot more paint a lot more faster with this, guys. So I am going to use that other brush to mix my color, and then I'll go back in with my my tiny one, once I've got all the color mixed together to what I think is going to work. Because you know what? It's never really perfect, you know? That's what I find. So many people are like, but I want to make it perfect. I want to get the perfect color. I want to do it right and straight out of the gate. And you know what? Newsflash, it's just not going to happen. It's a lot of trial and error. And sometimes you do something and you just don't even know if that's the right thing. See, I've made a lighter color now. Can you see it? See the difference? Yeah. So basically mixing two colors, cadmium red, titanium white. This was just a darker version of it. This is a lighter version. I like that lighter version. So we're going to go with that. Just cleaning my brush out. So I'm just cleaning out this little brush here. Like swirl it around in the water and then rubbing it on paper towel. And there. Now we're clean again and we're going to go in. I dip it in water first. I want to make it wet, and then we're going to dip it into the color. And I do like to use water to help it flow, especially with fur and like tiny strands. You want a good flow. So the question is, where are we going to start? I think I'm going to go from top to bottom. That's easier than from bottom to top. Why? Because your hand might actually touch your work. And then you're just going to have a mess on your hands, literally, pun intended, right? So I tend to work from left to right and top to bottom, wherever I can. And I'm just going to put like tiny little strokes in, kind of overlapping, and that's not gliding enough, so I'm going to add more water. And I'm going to add tiny little strokes, and they can overlap, and I'm doing them fairly fast because I know it's going to be a bunch of them, and I don't want to overthink it here. I just want to put tiny little strokies in and just work my way down. Be careful here. There we go. And it's okay to go back, and it's, yeah, overlap the older strokes, and because in my photo it looks very like dense to get together. That's why I added that shadow back in, because if you put a shadow in and then you go over top of it but go different directions, it all of a sudden seems to create this zigzag network, almost spider, you know, web type structure, and it looks so intricate, but all you did was put down a shadow base and go over top of it. And if you do that with multiple colors and you go into multiple directions with that color, you're going to create a really cool texture. And yeah, does that take time? It can, especially if you're working on like you know, a tall or a big canvas, then for sure that can take up a lot of time, especially if you do small strokes like this. But my canvases aren't very big, 11 by 14 inches. So it doesn't take me that long to cover some ground. So we're going down, and sometimes I go down and then I go back again, because especially if it is quite wet, sometimes when you go over it, you might just disturb the stroke you have just put down and move it around a little bit, and you just don't want that. Okay, I'm just looking. I think I need to go in a little bit more. Yeah. So here you see me. Okay, I'm going to go this direction. Oh, that is way too big, guys. Oh boy. Okay, gone. I gotta be gentle. I'm like barely grazing it. It's like whew, whew, whew. Just gently grazing, and well, it's not really glazing, but like tiny, yeah, they're tiny little hair strokes. See? Boop, 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 boop. Okay, reload. And these ones are a bit longer. Okay, that is way too big. These ones are a bit longer, so there we go. See, I'm overlapping them, and I tried to start them roughly at the same spot, but overlapping them into different directions. I'm gonna leave that, even though I'm like, oh, that's too bright. You know what, that might help me in the long run. So longer strokes. I've got to slow down a little bit, because it goes like this and curls around. Damn, there we go. And then it becomes shorter again over here. So we do shorter strokes, and I'm running out of paint here. There we go. Now this, usually when I put on a new coat on my brush. I need to actually take some excess off because sometimes it's just too much. I don't want to ruin it, right? Okay. You see how that gives a little bit of a bushy effect? And there we go. I'm gonna go back because now I might just go back to the top and go down again and try to maybe overlap it in a slightly different way. I actually think we need another brighter color here. That's what I'm thinking. That's too far. Yeah. But that's how I built that up. And remember though, again, they dry darker, right? The colors. So, okay, so that's the one side. And this, you see all these little gaps like that I've left in the color that's coming through. It really gives it more of a fur type look. Okay, we're gonna turn this sucker upside down and do the same thing, but now I have to do it reverse. It takes a little bit of getting used to, but it's fine. I'm just kind of follow actually what I've painted rather than my my reference photo. So I'm gonna have to go up instead of down. And because the base of the hairs are tend to be thicker than the bottom, I'm gonna make sure that I do that. It's not just like, oh, from top to bottom, because you tend to get a thicker stroke. Because you tend to get a thicker part of the paint on there where you start it. So that's my other tip, is when you do hair-like strokes, start your stroke where the hair will be coming out of the skin, because it tends to be a bit thicker than when you end it, because you go flick, flick, and with the flick, you create that, you know, nice little soft effect here at the end. So I always suggest to start at the base where the hair would be coming out of the skin naturally. And then so that your end can be nice and soft and small, because hairs tend to go into a bit of a point. There we go. That looks pretty good actually from upside down. Now we're gonna work our way over here. This is, like I said, I enjoy this part. Okay, I'm just looking at my paint, my reference photo again. I'm just kind of following what I've done there. And what I did is I just go into multiple directions, tiny little strokes. Like I said, this needs to have another layer because it is just not really standing out. And that's okay. It'll still help in the long run. Every layer helps. There we go. And I might have to go back to it. Okay, I think I want it just a little bit more defined here. You can see them sticking out onto the black canvas there, like the hairs, and it's perfect. Okay, I'm turning it back around just to see how it looks. That's not too bad. I like how the bottom turned out. I could probably do some flicking here. That's not a big deal, like especially if the hairs go just kind of sideways. Oh, that's way out of field. Hello. There. It might just need another layer of that, but with a tiny or with a lighter color. What the heck? Seriously. There we go. All right. I've also noticed that this nostril has a little bit more of a highlight versus that one. So, and this is actually a really nice color. So I'm gonna go into that nostril here, add a little bit more highlight. Now, how do I do it? I'm going to do a lot of like stippling, like so. And then I dab just to kind of diffuse it a little bit. And I'm just gonna follow my reference photo where the light is hitting in the reference photo. I'm just kind of erratically moving it a little bit, as you can see. You know, you might think I have a medical condition here. I don't. I do this on purpose. There we go. And go a little bit further out. I find stippling often does amazing for trying to get details in and color and light. And I think that the other side I might have had a little bit more white in the paint. Looks a bit better, but also in that photo there is a little bit more light on the left side, you know. So there we go. Now we see more of like a nostril shape. That looks way better. Awesome. All right, now what do I want to do next? Let's clean this brush. I'm thinking we need to do one more layer of something in this painting. I usually paint about an hour at a time. That seems to work well for my brain. If you can work hours on end, that's awesome. But I tend to be like, okay, I need to do something else after an hour. So I'm just kind of taking a quick peek here and I'm just like, well, I like how this part kind of dried up. That looks pretty good. And the question is, am I going to deepen those spots? And I'm thinking, well, the spots are pretty, you know, they're there, they're obvious. Just trying to make decisions here. Do I want to do a glaze? You know, maybe in this area where it should be a little bit more. Yeah, I think so. Because this is a bit more shadow, I might stick a glaze on there, and then I go over the nose maybe with one more layer. Yeah, I can do that. The glaze is not going to take me too long. I'm going to grab this. It's a round brush, but sometimes when the round brush gets moved and pushed around, it turns more into like a, almost like a flat brush, but it is round. So we're gonna glaze this area here and maybe just around the edge just to create some more shadow. Okay, so here we go. I actually don't have a ton of paint in here, but I kind of want to go over this section to make it a little bit darker. So I'm just gently rubbing in the paint where I think I need a shadow. And I can do multiple layers if I want to, right? And I'm going into the hair area here too. I can always paint over that again if I need to. And then what I'll do is flick it up a little bit, and then I tend to use my finger to just blot it and kind of make it become part of it. You see the difference between these two areas where I added the glaze versus where I didn't. Here you see really clearly what I've done earlier, and here it becomes more of a background. So we're gonna do the same thing here, and I'm just gonna, you can do glazing in whatever motion you want. I like to do it in circular motions just because. And then I flick it into the hairs a little, ta-da, and go this way, and then dab around the edges just to soften it enough. I like that. That's a nice little touch there. I don't know what that is, why it's white or light. Doesn't matter. So I kind of like what that did, and I've got some other areas that need a little bit more shadow, like right up here it needs a little more. So we're gonna go in here and I'm just basically rubbing it into the canvas over top of my other colors. There. Okay. There we go. Don't want to go too far in. This side still seems to have a decent shadow. I might want to do it around these nostrils a little bit more, but actually, no, I'm thinking out loud, I'm debating. I've decided to add a little shadow around here because this line of the mouth I still find is very, like, it's a little too distinct. So I'm just going to go over the mouth here with the color, like at the top and the bottom, and just kind of rubbing it. I know there is some other color already there, so some of it will start to kind of stand out a little bit, especially now that it's kind of wet. Okay, rubbing in circles, just so that it goes different direction a little bit, so it's not all in one spot, so it becomes part of the whole. Go up a little bit. There we go. I like that. That looks pretty good. Time to grab my tiny little nail brush again, and I'm gonna add some more lighter highlights in here. All right, with a lighter color, we're just going to go over again and just add a couple more highlights, and then call it like a day for today's painting session. I actually should go around the whole thing, so let's do that. Pretty sure this is roughly the same color. You never really get the exact same color twice, I find, but that's fine, you know. Are all these hairs exactly the same color? I doubt it. Okay, I need more water. That's not flowing properly. All right. I'm actually gonna, oh, there's a little hair on there. There we go. I'm gonna go from left to right now, just because it's easier and I can do it fairly quick. You saw that I just shifted my hand to a slightly different angle. Experiment with that with your own work. You know, you will be able to figure out what works best for you and how your body works as well and how your hands work. And this is way too much. Oh my gosh. Come on, Mama, you got this. Now, I wanted to chat a little bit about my channel and what you can expect going forward. For now, I'm going to be uploading bi-weekly because I just can't otherwise. Like, I have 4 kids that I'm trying to raise and, you know, hopefully turn out into decent human beings, and other things that are going on, like swimming lessons and appointments and all that fun stuff. And recently had a little bit of a health scare with my youngest, who fell off his bike, hit his head, had a tiny brain bleed because of it. Like, honestly, that was an interesting, like, wait in the emergency room and sorting all of that out. And oh my gosh, like, life is life, right? Things come your way, and yeah, some things take priority, right? So the whole point of that is that I'm going to stick to a bi-weekly upload, and I'm going to be doing more of these types of videos where I'm actually talking as I'm painting, instead of painting and then coming up with a script and doing a voiceover afterwards. Even though I enjoy that, because I really do, I enjoy coming up with the script, working out the script, recording it, editing it in, and all that fun jazz. I enjoy it, but it's very time consuming, right? And because of that, I need to step away from doing that, because it just started to consume my day-to-day, and it's more important that I'm being a mom to my kids than to try to, you know, be Miss Perfect here on YouTube, because who the heck is perfect, right? Exactly. So it's going to be more studio chat type videos, and I'll be talking about different things. So like I said, I will speak about what I'm doing, what brush I'm using, and what technique I'm using, and why I do the things that I do. But I also just want to discuss life things, you know, like, come on, like, I'm not just an artist. I'm a mother, I'm a woman, you know, recently widow, and that's a complicated and interesting story, and I could dive into that a little bit more as well. But, you know, I'm also a Christian, and that's another thing that is really important to me, is my faith. And how do I incorporate that into my channel? Because it's such a part of my daily life that I cannot just not use that as part of a conversation, because it is part of my daily conversation. And I do give praise and glory to God for all the things that He has given me and the things He has blessed me with. So I'm going to also do a little bit more faith-based type videos where you'll just watch me paint, but I'll be talking about you know, a devotion that might have spoken to me, or I might be reading out scripture and you can just listen to it, or maybe I'll be reading out prayers or declarations, you know, that have helped me and are helping me, and that I want to share with other people. Now, if that's not your jam, that's fine, because I'm not going to do that every single time, right? But it is important, because it's who I am, and that's what I want to be, is who I am. not what people might want me to be, or, you know, what the YouTube gurus might be telling you. Although lately I've noticed the shift that a lot more people are more going towards authenticity and just who they are, and just don't apologize for just being who they are. And I think that is way more important than anything else, especially in a world where things go kind of crazy and nuts and all that fun jazz. I just want to be who I am, because I can't fake that. And if I'm faking, you know, who I am to begin with, people pick up on that. So there's just no reason to do that. So if you will find scripture here or there that I quote, or a prayer, or an opinion that is, you know, rooted in my Christian faith and in the biblical truths that I believe, you know. And but still, the main focus is my art. So my videos will still portray my art, and like I said, I will be talking about techniques, and I will be talking about what I'm doing, what brush I'm using. And if you have specific questions, like, feel free to throw them in the comments, and then I can answer them, you know, in a video that's coming in the future. But I just wanted to make this whole video making, oh gosh, whoopsies. No, I want to make this video making process just easy and gentle on me, so I don't feel like I'm in a rat race or on a hamster wheel trying to please some sort of algorithm. Like, in my opinion, that will turn into idolatry. Well, that ain't helpful. That's not going to help anybody. So we're not doing that. At least I'm not doing that. What you do is up to you. But I just really want to discuss things that are important to me. I want to talk about being a single parent. I want to talk about raising kids on the spectrum and what that's like, and the struggles that come with that. I want to talk about things that are currently on my mind and that I'm working on for myself, you know, like my own personal life, but also, you know, just things that come up, right? There's so much going on in the world, and I just would like this to be a place where I can just go and, like, you know what, this is what I'm thinking. This is what I've noticed, and this is what I'm doing about it, or maybe not, because some things are just out of our control, man. Like, sometimes we get ourselves into a tizzy and into all kinds of things that, and then you realize, wow, I'm wasting a whole bunch of, oh dear. You see my canvas moved. Energy on something that cannot be changed or that I have no control over. And so I got to stop worrying about X, Y, Z, you know. So moving forward, that's kind of where I'm heading. A little bit more of my own opinions, a little bit more of my own life experiences, and mixed in with my painting adventures and all that stuff. So yeah. Well, I am trying to get some of these lighter highlights in here. There we go. Just gentle strokes. That's what it is all about. So, but yeah, just let me know in the comments too, like, hey, are there certain topics you might want to hear me talk about, you know? And so once in a while, there will be a more in-depth tutorial, you know, because I do enjoy doing them. And if I have the time and I just really want to put some time into scripting and all that fun stuff and researching and going more in depth about things, I enjoy that, but it's not going to be as often as it used to be. Plus, I do have quite a bit of tutorials on my channel, so go and find them and, you know, maybe gain some knowledge from them. Because eventually you get to the point where I'm just repeating myself. I'm saying the same things over and over again until I stumble across another technique or something that, you know, I want to share with you. But everything else is roughly the same. So you don't have to look too far to find some of these techniques and the things that I do, because they're all on my channel. And you can just go ahead and find them and enjoy learning. I'm hoping you learned something. And even if you're not here for my paintings and stuff, that's fine too. Wow, now you look like you're an old cow. He looks a bit older now. Like, it looks like gray. That's kind of funny. I might grab my stippling brush here. I just turned it around. I'm like, hold on. Now you look like an old cow with like a gray beard. which is kind of hilarious if you think about it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab one of my brushes that I use for stippling. It's one of my favorite techniques too. Ta-da! And I'm going to dip in that same color that I just used. And I'm going to stipple some of this color around the muzzle just to bring that color in a little bit. Like to marry it together with the rest of the cow, because this is looking kind of funny. I'll be careful not to put too much because it is pretty light. Okay, now barely anything. Oh, there we go. Now we've got some. That might have been that one little spot that I mentioned earlier here. Where that came from. I might have done this stippling before. Oh boy. That's kind of funny. How now all of a sudden I've got some more highlights in, but now you look like an old cow, man. What the heck? Oh boy. That's a little too much. Well, I can always bring those spots back out again. That's not a big deal. I also don't want to go over too much of these little lines that I just put in. That would be a shame if I would have to redo that all over again. Oh boy. That's kind of funny. I'm like, okay, yeah, let's add some highlights. I think I added a little too many highlights, but you know what? It's fine. Maybe this cow is just one of those funny cows, you know? I mean, this is kind of a bit of a figment of my imagination as far as colors are concerned, right? Because this cow obviously is not in its normal original colors. So, I mean, why not have him or her? Come on, if it's a cow, it's a her. Jeez. Just be a little funky. But I think, yeah, I want to rub it in rather than stipple it on, actually. So I'm going to go around the edge a little bit and just kind of rub it in. It doesn't look as weird. And I could always add shadows in later. Like, that's the beauty of working with acrylics too, is just layers, layers, more layers. It's all good. And I'm just very gently circling here. It's not super strategically placed. And the nice thing is I can easily do this now because everything is dry. There's not much in my brush left. There we go. Like I said, I can always go back and add more shadows, but there, that's a little bit better, right? It looked so weird. All of a sudden it looked like this thing just grew a beard overnight. Like, what the heck, man? Like, that's some interesting magic. Okay. So, just, yeah. Might want to get in between here a little bit, but like you can see, right? Real quick, that it's gonna cover up what I've done. It's okay. Like I said, I can bring it back up. I can add more shadows, but I don't want to completely cover what I've done. Like I said, again, barely any paint in this brush. Okay, now it becomes a little bit harder around these spots here. Okay. Oh, you silly mama. Made this, just the highlights a little too bright, huh? But that's okay. Like I said, you sometimes just roll with the punches and you just go with it. Okay, come on. Alright. Alrighty. Well, this is where we're going to stop for today. I'm going to go back into it some other time, refine it a little bit more where needed, and I'm hoping that after my next painting session that I can call it done. But for now, this is good. I am satisfied with this. I'm going to go clean up my brushes and continue on with my day. Just drop me a comment, ask me a question. For now, I just want to say stay happy, keep your peace, and I will see you in the next video. God bless you. Bye-bye.